Welcome to this special ChannelX Leaders interview. Delighted to be joined today by Neil Ashworth, who has had an amazing history, or career, I should say, in the logistics industry. And I could reel off the names. It's like a who's who of Tesco's, Collect Plus, Yodel, InPost, today non-executive chair at Parcel2Go and Are Fulfilment. So welcome, Neil. How are you?
Thanks, Chris. That makes me feel very old more than anything else. I'm pretty good for a dull, rainy Monday morning in February. But
Yeah. So you've had an amazing career, and quite honestly, Neil, most people with a career like yours, they've retired by now, but you're still non-executive chair, not just at Parcel2Go, but We Are Fulfilment as well. Can you tell us a little bit about those two companies and what made you excited to carry on in the industry and work with these businesses?
Well, let's talk about those two businesses first. So I work with 6 different businesses at the moment. I also work with 4 universities. I do some career mentoring with people, and I'm also involved with the staff corps, the British military, and then I'm an ambassador for both Transaid and Generation Logistics. But Parcel2Go, is, I suppose, the best way of describing it for those who don't know who Parcel2Go are, is it's the compare the market for the parcels world, I guess, is probably the best way of describing it. I got involved through private equity businesses who recently acquired Parcel2Go, asked me to step in and chair the business, which I was delighted to do. I've known the business for a good few years. And I think there's great prospects there. So it was a fairly easy decision. We Are Fulfilment is a much younger business. It's an early stage or growth stage fulfillment provider. It was founded by 2 guys who don't have a background in logistics or e-fulfillment. They are quite disruptive in the way in which they want to approach fulfillment services, and I liked their approach. I liked the way in which they saw the market and the way in which they wanted to take their business forward. And again, I was introduced to them through a private equity business, so again, delighted to work with them. But then I also work with a business called Not Lost that helps you get stuff back that you've lost wherever you've lost it. And we work with people like Transport for London and Uber and others. I work with Ibis Group, who are a grocery technology business, Tucson Global, who are a global healthcare business in the world of self-diagnostics, and a community interest company called Real Leaders, which is aimed at helping kids to get out of gang crime.
Oh, so, that's amazing. So I want to try and pick your brains a bit today, Neil, as someone that has been in the industry as long as I've been writing ChannelX, which is coming up for 20 years. And in fact, your career's been longer than that. But let's just dive into something that is probably the most important thing of all for consumers, which is on-time delivery. I mean, I can remember the days when I was a child that a delivery used to be you clipped something out of a magazine or newspaper, got a postal order, sent it off, and delivery was 28 working days. And yet today we expect delivery, well, today maybe, but definitely tomorrow. But a couple of questions. Is next day delivery really the be all and end all? And what is an on-time delivery? Is delivery in 3 days, but that's when it was promised, a better thing than expecting it tomorrow and it arriving the following day?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris, and the answer, as far as I see it, is that it depends upon the customer's circumstances. In many respects, going back to the days of 28 delivery or 7-day delivery, even when I was at Woolworths and then joining Tesco and setting up Tesco Direct, the market was 3 to 5 days at best. And we launched Tesco Direct with a next day standard. And at that point in time, we thought that was what customers wanted. And in many ways it was, because what they don't want is uncertainty. And the fact that over 80% of customers track deliveries, I still find puzzling. Because if you're going to deliver something the following day and you've probably shopped with that retailer on multiple occasions, you generally know that they are going to or not going to deliver, depending upon where you live, I guess. But the reality is that under certain circumstances, your mission is, I need something because I don't know, I'm doing a plumbing project at home and I've got my finger stuck in a tap and I need a washer. You need that product straight away, and so on demand has a real tangibility in the modern era. It may be that you like a deal on a new TV. You don't actually need it today. You don't need it tomorrow. You need it at a time when it's going to be convenient for you to have the delivery made or to pick the order up, that you can actually install it or somebody can come and install for you. So it very much depends upon mission. And when I was at Collect Plus, we did an awful lot of research around this, and there are three really important factors in the customer equation, and it's about price, service, and convenience. Customers don't want to pay for delivery fundamentally, and God bless Amazon. They've convinced customers that they shouldn't pay for delivery. It's not really the reality of the situation, but we are where we are in some ways. Convenience is really, really important, though, and what's convenient for me might not be convenient for the next person, and therefore retailers who offer a single delivery option are missing the nuance of customer demand and customer requirements. And then service sits behind it, and service is about delivering on the promise that you've made, and that promise might be that you're going to deliver something in 3 or 4 days time at a particular time in the day, because that suits the customer. And it's that service promise that becomes really important. And so it's not necessarily about speed, it's about reliability for me. So price, service, convenience are the three key factors. And within service, there's a whole series of different elements that actually play to the customer's real need. And, it's one of the things that I was always a keen follower of customer dynamics and what customers want. But spending time working at Tesco, that was really honed and really sharpened. And it's one of the things that I guess in some ways has always driven the way in which I've operated.
And I think talking of service, something I think that was kind of missed in the early days of e-commerce, but has had a lot of focus in recent years is the challenges of returns. And I'm amazed at some retailers now, because you kind of get a returns label, whether you're paying for it or the retailer's paying for it, and within seconds of dropping it off at a parcel shop or a locker or whatever, you're being refunded already, which I just find amazing. But what are the real opportunities in returns for retailers and brands?
Well, I think you just highlighted the most important thing, that when a customer's purchase something and for whatever reason it doesn't meet their needs, so the size is wrong, the color's wrong, it's a different specification to the thing that I thought I've ordered, the only thing that really matters to the customer is getting the money back, because then they've got the opportunity to repurchase. So the primary focus should not be on, we normally refund you within 7 days or we normally refund you within 10 days. It should be, we refund you straight away. And again, when I was at Collect Plus, we did some work with Amazon to enable that. So as soon as we saw a product being dropped back into one of our locations, we sent a trigger to Amazon and they refunded the customer straight away. And the reason for that is the propensity to repurchase through that same retailer is much higher. So you'll go and find an alternative product. So the priority for me in returns is always around refund. And refund doesn't have to be in hard cash. It can be in credits as well. And it always surprised me that more retailers don't use credit as a way of actually locking customers in and managing that return process. And in-store return has always been popular for the simple reason that you get your money back faster. Rather than waiting for things to be transacted online. So, the whole returns dynamic is a really, really important part of of the whole online equation. I think in some ways it's unfortunate that retailers have spent time trying to almost prevent returns rather than to manage them. And by manage them, I'm talking about actually managing out of policy returns. It's about managing fraudulent returns and misuse and abuse. But then it's really about how they prioritize returns within their internal flows to manage that refund opportunity, to actually provide the customer with an outstanding service so that they repurchase. But, some of the research that we did a few years ago said that your average younger consumer up to the age of, well, let's say 18 to 35, will shop typically with about 7 retailers. And they won't change those number of retailers particularly often. And therefore, there's lots of opportunity for you to actually create lifetime or long-term relationships with those customers. And one of the real opportunities to lose that relationship is a poor returns experience, because you can deliver on time, you can deliver within the promise that you've made. But if the returns experience is poor, it's an opportunity to lose customers. And charging for returns, all the research that I've seen in the past, in general terms, 75 to 80% of customers who are charged for returns won't shop with that retailer again. So it's like closing the doors of the store. It's a great way of shutting customers out.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say about offering credit vouchers as opposed to cash, because if I have a good returns experience, I'll almost certainly shop with that retailer again, and probably often within days, especially if it's someone like Amazon. And I can't remember the last time I actually got a voucher, as opposed to just like a ping in my bank account saying, "Hey, you've been refunded."
Yeah, it's for me, it's an underutilized form of transaction, and rather than lose the customer, I think retailers should consider it as part and parcel of their options and opportunities. And certainly, where you're looking at large items, the importance of getting customers their money back is key, because exchange is really difficult to manage. Few operational systems and few financial systems within retail organizations manage exchange particularly well, and therefore a full refund and the opportunity to rebuy is key.
Now, I'd like to focus a bit more on sort of changes in customer small retailer behavior in the past few years. And I've got to say, small businesses, in my view, they've upped their game so much that they're acting like the large brands nowadays. But what have you seen? What are customers wanting? And are there any tricks that small businesses are still missing that they could be picking up on?
I think the really important thing here, Chris, is that technology is allowing small organizations to leapfrog and almost to be as good as, if not better than some of the larger businesses. And it's providing them with an agility that just wasn't there a few years ago. Customers are still very demanding, probably increasingly demanding, and those organizations that are in tune with their customers and really listen to them, and that isn't just about giving lip service to that phrase, but genuinely hearing what customers have to say and what they're looking for is really important. And quite often customers don't know what they're looking for until they actually see it. And so you've actually got to, you've got to create a dialogue relationship with the customer. It's not about broadcasting and telling people, what should happen, or asking open questions that the customer just responds. It's about entering into a dialogue so that you're actually understanding the way in which they're living their life. And organizations have got phenomenal access these days to, real depth of customer insight. Some of the stuff that we had at Tesco through the club card was quite phenomenal in many ways. And the things that we knew about customers and about the way in which customers shopped our stores, shopped our online offer, and shopped with competitors was phenomenal in terms of the power it gave us, in terms of tuning the offer to ensure that we were matching those customers' requirements. And those kind of capabilities are available to smaller retailers now, and also to their fulfillment partners. And so what you're actually seeing are, let's call it collaborations for the customer, where you've got fulfillment houses like We Are Fulfilment who are providing not only a pick, pack and delivery service, but they're actually adding in added value services that meet customer needs and actually allow the retailer to be more effective in the way in which they're engaging with their customers. And so, it's actually creating an ecosystem, that is based upon improving service over time, because this whole thing about service is a continual battle. It's a continual fight. And I think the industry has moved quite considerably in recent years from, let's go back, 10, 15, 20 years, and you're looking at on-time delivery performances of 92, 93%. You're sitting in the 97s and 98s. I always advocate for why isn't 100 the target that we should be aspiring to? It was really interesting. We did a lot of work, again, when I was at Tesco, based upon, and this is around grocery and about the frequency of customer shopping. So if you have a customer who's going to shop with you for 30 or 40 years, and they're going to have, 30, 40, 50 items in the basket every week of the year, then if you actually work out statistically what that means, over the course of their lifetime relationship with you, you are guaranteed to fail them pretty much all the time. Statistically, your delivery performance will be pretty much zero. So we actually then said, well, actually, if you look at an on-shelf availability target of pretty much 100%, over the lifetime of the customer, you'll probably get to something like 75 to 80% over the lifetime, which is still pretty unacceptable. And that's aiming for almost 100%. Now, the statistics and the calculations, the maths will be different for a relationship, for non-food, should we say, where a customer might buy something with a retailer 2, 3, 4 times a year. The difference is the opportunity for failure is greater. And for every time that you fail, it's 100% failure for that customer. And therefore, the lifetime impact is quite substantial. And therefore, excuse me, accepting a level of 98, 97, 98% probably isn't where we want to rest. I think we've got to strive to move on again and see if we can actually push ourselves as an industry above 99% towards that magical 100% figure, which you'll never hit in reality. But I think we need to aspire for greater things to drive that retention, because we all know that actually keeping a customer is a lot easier rather than actually acquiring one in the first place. It's a lot cheaper to retain a customer than it is to acquire one. And therefore, the nurture and the effort that should be placed into a customer relationship needs to continue to improve. And, it's one of the things that I talk to the businesses I work with on an ongoing basis, and they probably get sick to the back teeth of me going on about it. But, it really is about understanding the customer, understanding their lifestyle, understanding what they're looking for, and delivering absolutely every time. And, setting yourself very, very high standards in execution to retain that customer over a period of time, and therefore generate the kind of returns that the business is looking for.
And I'm finding it fascinating that the two businesses in the carrier space you work with, Parcel2Go, ideal for small businesses who can then offer a breadth of services and a choice of services, and we Are Fulfilment, who again, as far as the customer's concerned, can offer that choice of services for customers. But I'd like to dig a little bit more, Neil, into how you work with these companies. What's your leadership style? You said you go on so much that maybe they're even getting a bit fed up with keep hearing the story. But how do you get the message across to them?
Well, I suppose over the years I've sort of, I suppose, honed a number of themes. And the first one I've already talked a good bit about is really follow the customer and really understand the customer. And any business that I work in, for me, has to have a customer-facing dimension. I wouldn't work in an organisation that was way up the supply chain and didn't really interact with customers or consumers, depending which word you want to use. that those kind of organizations wouldn't really excite me, I guess. I think the other things that have always driven me are really around valuing diversity. The best teams are the most complex ones, the ones that have people with different perspectives and different ways of working, and the effort that you put into getting those teams to really work together progressively, pays huge dividends. So I always work on the basis that you believe in people. You always hire for will over skill, because people choose their own attitude on a day-to-day basis. If you actually hire people with the right will, then you can train them. You can always develop people to become the experts that you want them to be. I think the other thing that I guess I've learned more than anything else from the e-commerce era is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't make the same mistake twice, which was always a bit of a mantra of Sir Terry Leahy. But get yourself into areas of discomfort. Be prepared to take a bit of risk, because that's how you actually push the boundaries. And it means that you've got to stay curious. You've got to keep challenging yourself. You still got to be authentic. I always believe that my good northern upbringing means that I'm pretty straight with people. I'm fairly direct, but it means that my authenticity actually plays out in the way in which I work on a day-to-day basis, and that curiosity, I think, actually backs that up. And fundamentally, the other thing that I always say to people, and I always say to the teams that I've led, is you may as well enjoy yourself while you're doing it. If you don't enjoy doing what you're doing, go find something to enjoy, because you're a long time dead, but you're actually a long time at work. And you're at work a lot more than you're not at work, so you may as well enjoy your time there. And I always encourage the teams that I work with to have a bit of fun, and in some ways don't take themselves and don't take everything too seriously, because this is there are enough troubles in the world without the challenges being brought to the business on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, have a bit of fun while you're at it.
And I think that's really interesting. And I think that my biggest takeaway from this talk with you today, Neil, is not just have a bit of fun at work, but the will above skill. So many jobs nowadays, it's automatically, have you got a degree or have you got an MBA, which is just a piece of paper. Having people that are engaged and have got the will to succeed and make things happen, and at the same time are fun to work with, what could be better?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the businesses I work with at the moment, one of the leaders in that business is probably what you would class as pretty uneducated. But that's because of some of the challenges that individual faced in earlier life. You actually look at their ability, and they're quite a remarkable individual. So, you look at people like Sir Richard Branson, who was dyslexic and struggled to some degree at school. I don't think he's done too badly for himself. And so, writing people off or ruling people out because of their background or because of their educational sort of heritage, I think is a bit naive, and you're in danger of ruling out real talent. As I say, hiring for will over skill for me will play out every day, because you can develop people, you can work with them to build the skills and the experience. What you can't do, because it's in their control, you can't choose their attitude for them. They choose it themselves, and they decide on a day-to-day basis how they come to work. It was one of the things that really, I suppose, drove me, particularly in the time at Tesco, was about encouraging everybody in the organization that worked for me to really decide how they were coming to work on a day-to-day basis. They were a leader in many ways of their own attitude, and that the consequence of that is that we all have leadership obligations. It's not just the guy at the top or the girl at the top, it's everybody. And that ability to choose your attitude on a day-to-day basis is something that in many ways, we need to nurture. We really need to build on the capabilities that everybody's got, and which is why that point about valuing diversity for me is so important, because it takes all sorts to make a great team. And sometimes personalities clash. Sometimes styles really don't seem to work together. But helping people to understand the fact that they're just looking at the same challenge from a different perspective, I think is hugely important, because once people start to appreciate each other, you really start to motor, and driving and gaining alignment within an organization is enormously powerful, and it just allows you to move along at pace. And it means that the risks that you take, actually you can skip by them where they don't work quite easily, and you can really get after the things that do work. So and a number of, I guess, life skills in some ways, or things that I've learned along the way over, I don't know, 30, well, God, nearly 40 years now. Time flies when you're having fun. And I think, going back to the point that you made at the start, people of my era, a lot of them have retired. I don't retire because I actually enjoy it. And, I still find that on a day-to-day basis, I still find fun in what I do. So, as I say, you're a long time dead, so you may as well carry on doing the things that you like doing.
Well, Neil, I want to thank you so much for your time today. But carry on loving life and loving the carrier industry. We need people like you to guide the companies and make sure we train people up with the skills, but most importantly that we have fun doing it. So thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure to talk, Chris. Thanks.